that the wider tour activity and attraction sector can learn from this adventure travel, sustainable travel world?
Yeah, I think that probably the most important thing for companies to think about is how to incorporate the local offerings as much as possible into what you do. And in fact, Janelle, that we do an industry survey every year, and this year had a surprise in it. This is different than the market sizing study. So this is our
Mm-hmm.
trends and insights study. For 20 years, we've been doing this. And for most of those years, hiking, walking, and trekking was the number one activity. And then during COVID, e-bikes and cycling actually eclipsed it briefly and then dropped back down. But what was the surprise this year is that culinary became the number one driver in adventure travel. Now that is
Interesting.
super interesting because to me it says that culture piece is a huge part of it. It also confirms the whole thought about we have just a more sophisticated traveler hitting the world now. And then the other thing is this is something anyone can incorporate into their tours to really highlight, market, and make sure that the food is a big part of the story, because the travelers are definitely seeking that, wanting that. And so there's some insider information for anybody out there, is figure out how to work local food into your itineraries, and then make sure you market that too, because travelers are looking for it.
Yeah, that's interesting that it's worked its way into adventure travel, because we've definitely seen that in Arrival research for a few years. Getting more popular culinary tourism is huge.
Yep.
But
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, for adventure travel, I can think of like some great examples of people who managed to work food into. There's a kayak tour operator out in Eastern Canada that does like sea cave kayaking tours, and they
Mm.
connected with a local chef, and they did this like special experience where you could have like a 5-star chef made meal in a little enclave that you can only access by kayak. And I was like, that sounds
Love
so
that.
cool. Like, we need more stuff like that.
I
Of
love
course
that.
there's,
Well, and
yeah,
I think about some of the multi-day rafting trips I've been on, like with oars or row.
yeah,
The food is a big part of the experience. They're not just
yeah,
throwing peanut butter and jelly together. You're having eggs Benedict in the morning. It's like, what?
yeah,
That's incredible.
yeah. That's, yeah. People want to eat. People have to eat, and they want to eat well.
Yes. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
definitely a shift that we've seen, that's become really important for people's travel decisions. So,
yeah. That's interesting. And what about like meaningful travel? You mentioned transformational travel. What about that human connection piece? Do you think is important, especially now?
yeah, I think travelers are all doing soft diplomacy, whether they realize it or not. It's really hard to dislike or hate someone when you humanize and you meet them and you realize that maybe some biases or prejudices that we carry often do not hold true. I mean, that has been my own personal experience. My father, who passed away a number of years ago, I love telling this story. He held a very low opinion of Palestine and Palestinians. And so I grew up with that. It was a very strict view. And then he came to one of my summits in Scotland, he and my mom, and Palestine was the sponsor for a breakfast. And as I was walking to the conference center, I saw my dad talking to the Palestinian guy. And inside, I have to admit, I was gripping up. I was just like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen here? My
Yeah.
dad came back to me and he said, I met the gentleman from Palestine, and he was the sweetest, kindest, most thoughtful man. And it was just a really moving moment. And it was like,
Hmm.
this is why travel matters, is that I don't know if you've seen Rick Steves recently posted, I think on Instagram, about his trip to Iran many years ago. And what I love about the video he's showing right now is it just humanizes. You're seeing normal, everyday Iranians who are obviously wonderful people who want the same thing that we want. And so, yeah, I think the human connection piece is massive. I think for me, it's probably the most important part of a trip. I was hiking through the Dana Nature Preserve in Jordan with a Jordanian guide, and he said, "Aren't these the most beautiful mountains you've ever seen?" And I said, "Well, I live in Colorado, so that's tough competition. But what I never have had happen is to pull aside and sit in a tent with a Bedouin, a local Bedouin, and have tea and even a cigarette. And I didn't smoke, but I smoked that day. And it was just, it was so obvious to me that the human connection part of the travel it's not only important to me, it's like the number one pillar.
Yeah, that sounds like an incredible experience. And yeah, it's definitely resonates. We've talked about that a fair bit on the podcast. It's just that human connection piece and the building bridges between people piece and how
Mm.
that can, facilitate more people having those types of experiences can make the world a better place because more people have compassion and understanding for people who are from different places.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.